What's up, everyone? It's Adar coming at you with another episode of Startup Engineering Daily. So the first story we have for today is that tldraw, which is kind of similar to tldraw. I haven't personally used it, but they kind of push the limits on like infinite canvas and just building like super interesting web experiences using the canvas. And you can take pictures, and I remember they had like a framework where you could plug different pieces in the canvas together, and it's just a very interesting product and like very clouded up in the industry. They have announced that they're actually closing pull requests from external contributors, and obviously they're an open source project. They're not fully open source, but they do make the source available. So, and I guess they were accepting external contributions, but they fully closed it because of the AI slop that people are contributing. I'm really surprised by this because I guess it makes sense if you're a completely inexperienced developer, and obviously there's been the problems with Hacktober where people are just contributing really bad PRs, even in the pre-AI days. But I'm so surprised that these PRs are really bad, and it does kind of speak to like the propaganda happening for these models. Like, if they're so great, why can't anyone just PR to fix something, and make it good? Or is it literally just like README updates that are just trash? That I can't really speak to, but super fascinating, like that people are going to start closing out contributors where it's been so hard to get people to contribute code, but now it's so hard to filter out the good from the bad with GitHub's current situation, and like all PRs are basically respected. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a long-term contributor, which I think Theo has talked about as well. But yeah, very interesting. And then we have Adam from Anomaly and OpenCode. I know he was working like on the coffee project, and he's friends with Prime and all of them. I'm not sure what he was doing before, but he does work on OpenCode now. And essentially he's saying that like, super big problem with the PRs that are coming from random AI code gen. I should take a look and see exactly what they are. Is it README updates? Is it like incorrect code? Obviously, it makes mistakes and it needs the context, but I just feel like with Claude Code, and maybe the issue is that they're using the really cheap models. I guess that would make sense as well. Is like if you're using like Gemini 2.5 Flash to generate PRs, that might be problematic with no context. So I guess I could see that. So very interesting. We'll have to see like where the industry goes from this, because the code output is obviously crazy. And for me, I feel like I'm not even generating enough. Like, I need to just have something running all the time. But the review piece is so important as well. And that's where it's like it is synchronous. Like, you can't ship stuff without PR review. And even the infrastructure and stuff I've been thinking about as well. But just for the code in like a sandbox is like you have to review it before it goes to main, So this is a interesting roadblock. Next, we just have a little bit of a chat about Cursor versus Claude, essentially. Suhail, who is one of the founders of Mixpanel, is just saying that he doesn't like reading from the terminal. I'm not sure if he's technical. I think he was the CEO, but I think he was technical. But, he just wants a nice readable markdown file. It kind of speaks to as well, like, people who really like Notion. Like, I feel like there's kind of like a brand of person who really likes Notion because of how nice and readable it is. Whereas like there's a whole opposite brand of people that just want to read stuff in the terminal. They want to use Vim shortcuts and stuff. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, like I'm super happy with Confluence. I just want like the information to be readable, and especially with like the Atlassian MCP, it's just super easy to update things. So you can kind of use anyone that has an MCP essentially and just do it through Claude or Cursor, but it is interesting. And also Tariq, who I think we've talked about before, saying working on this. And there is a bit of like I know Claude I'm not even going to cover it, but I know Claude posted that they like added a diff change viewer on desktop and web, but it's like if it's not even in the terminal, like I don't really care anymore. But like to that point, we have Lee announcing that Cursor is going to have a better plan visual editor. I remember I used this before when planning mode first came out. I really don't like the Cursor stuff beyond the chat. Like, I'm not even using Cursor anymore. I'm pretty much fully on Claude, and I have like my own custom workflow with like a Claude setup, and then below it I have like the tmux for all my projects and like all the different panels that are needed. But essentially they're saying the plan visual editor is getting better, and it's like essentially like a document that you can update that's generated, but it's like, why am I manually updating a doc? Like I want it to all be AI generated. So maybe that has changed since I last used it, but it'll support mermaid diagrams, which are like such a cool invention. Such an interesting like library that was built before the AI wave, but is like so useful, for generating diagrams programmatically and just anything programmatically. And then just one more thing I wanted to cover as well, which is this post from Melvin Vivas. I'm not sure who he is, but I just liked opening the community notes here because essentially there was a Cursor blog post that basically says GPT 5.2 models are better at extended autonomous work, whereas Opus like is lazy, takes shortcuts. Like, that's a crazy quote. And then we just have the community note I'm not sure if you can see it, but it says Cursor was seed funded by OpenAI and Sam Altman. Claude Code is a direct Cursor competitor, and it links to the Series A. So that's just funny to harp on. I don't really use the Codex models. I really have been fully on Opus 4.5. I think there is fluctuations in how good it is, possibly based on prompt updates, because they have claimed that they don't change the model at all in any like quantized or sampling methodology. So it is always the same model, but the prompts might be changing sometimes, or just the context that it fetched on that one run or the prompt that I sent might not have been perfect. But I do really like Opus 4.5, even though there are people that like the Codex ones. But I just think like that Claude Code exclusive promo that they're doing is just too hard to pass up. And then next we have an announcement from Evan Bacon from Expo. I'm actually not sure if he's working there, but he is the creator of Expo Router. And he's just a great tweeter. Like, he has a lot of information, and always recommend following him. But basically how Vercel launched that they had their new like React best practices plugin and skills. Expo has now launched it for Claude Code and also with any agent. So you can essentially get these multiple skills, and I'll show you. I had a list of them here, which is API routes, building UI, data fetching, dev client, Tailwind setup, use DOM, CI/CD, deployment, and upgrading Expo, which is interesting because I do use Expo for React Native, but I don't do full stack Expo. I have like experimented with the API routes, but I would probably just use Vercel for API routes these days for that like serverless kind of easy Lambda. But it is cool that they like are working to support the full stack, and these skills probably make it a lot easier. And the mono repos with one Cloud MD are definitely the future. So that's something I'm still trying to think about. And next we just have a cool little product launch that I saw just randomly, which is, I guess it's called Corca or Corsa, but it's like a latex essentially, or like a math editor on the computer. And it speaks to like, that's why people still do math on paper. And I guess they're speaking to a horizontal versus vertical kind of aspect, whereas text is very horizontal and stops at the end. This is like deeper, and it has lines, and it has different spacing. So it is really interesting. I'm not like the biggest math guy, but I have dabbled in it a bit, and I'm very like anti-paper. I love storing things digitally. So I always wondered like why you couldn't do math digitally, and I just kind of accepted that like the best you can do is on an iPad. But this is very interesting. And people did say, like this person did say that like, what does latex or types do? I haven't tried types, so it might be better than latex, but or LaTeX. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. But this might be better than LaTeX because the formatting for LaTeX is like quite confusing, and there's a lot of like escaping. Whereas, I mean, I don't know exactly how this works, but it is really clean and seems to be like keybind based. Here we have a tweet from Vercel developers, which is an interesting account. I didn't even know I was following them, but I guess yesterday at about 8 a.m. UTC, so about midnight PST, or I guess for quite a while, like 6 hours essentially yesterday, Anthropic was having errors with Opus. I don't know if I saw that yesterday. I know they have been having some outages. Like I think there was a Claude Code like OAuth outage, but it seems like yesterday they were having elevated error rates on Opus 4.5 and Sonnet 4.5, and Vercel AI Gateway seamlessly failed over to Bedrock on AWS, which is super interesting. And I looked into it. So it is like a free to use plan. You actually get like $5 per month, which obviously is useless. Like that'll last you nothing, but you can bring your own key, and they don't charge any premium on top. So that's really cool. And you get, I guess, these reliability. And I'm sure you get a bunch of other like developer experience benefits because it's from Vercel, but kind of a hidden gem here that I'm not sure everyone knows about. Okay, next we have a tweet from Guillermo from Vercel announcing this like Vercel Labs JSON render. I think it was announced a couple of days ago, but he kind of tweeted and showed a video where it is just chat-driven UI, which V0, Lovable, all these guys do. But I guess there's some benefit to going from AI to JSON to UI. I looked into it briefly, and it seems like the main thing is that like a normal LLM can generate components that you don't support potentially and like just make them up. Whereas with JSON, I guess you can force it to only use the components you want. But even that doesn't really make sense because I feel like with the right prompt, you can just make it do whatever you want. So I don't really understand the benefit here. The one thing I do understand, and like I've noticed with building mobile apps, right, that have to be approved through the App Store, is the more you can move to the server, the better. So if you do kind of generate like a React Native, but like a native iOS app using JSON, then you can kind of just change the UI whenever you want without having to go through the Apple system. And I know they probably discourage that. I'm pretty sure that's like what DoorDash and some of these like super modern apps are doing, is that they can update the UI through the API so they can A/B test and do all this crazy stuff as well. And then here's just a quick announcement from Jared Palmer, who used to work at Vercel. I don't know exactly what he did, but now he's the senior vice president of GitHub. And essentially, OpenCode is now supporting the GitHub Copilot subscription and vice versa. Kind of a dig at Claude, obviously. There's been all the drama the past couple days. It seems it might have calmed down a little bit today, but we'll have to see if people keep posted on it. Like, I don't think anyone's really been talking about how it really just was a Claude Code promo. Like, everyone still kind of hates Claude, but you get the little dig. If you have a GitHub Copilot subscription, you can now use it on OpenCode. I'm sure a lot of like companies are paying for people's GitHub Copilot, so this actually could be a really good finesse here. And the last story is just this product announcement from Adam.new. They have a cool domain name and a cool idea, which is essentially a mechanical engineer, like an AI-based CAD. I know a few people experimented with that. I even think Yassine, the guy who was like known for tweeting and worked at X for a little bit, I think he was working on something similar to this. I haven't checked on it recently, but it is a cool idea. You know, you have a chat in the bottom and you can tell it to do different things in 3D. Like, I'm sure there's even like a Blender MCP, so it'd be interesting to compare the two, but interesting product. I know people like the 3D stuff. I'm all software. Like, I don't mess with hardware at all, but you know, we need the hardware to live our lives, so I'm super grateful for the people that work on that, and could be something interesting or to take inspiration and build your own. If this kind of stuff interests you and you want to talk with some like-minded people, join the Audinato Discord in the description. Thanks.